You won't believe it, but this so-called max-level boss who once made others tremble was now getting beaten up badly by a few tiny squirrels, all because the game had just updated and he didn't even know how to use his own skills anymore. And this unlucky guy was none other than Chen Hui, known as the Scheming Glasses Man. That same day, a huge update in the VR game Myth of Illusion trapped hundreds of thousands of players worldwide inside the game, unable to return to reality. And the first thing Chen Hui did in this terrifying situation was to look for his best buddy Gigi. When they finally met, realizing there was no way back, they decided to form a small party and gather information about this strange new world. But before they could even go far, stones suddenly tumbled down in front of them. It turned out to be Xiao, someone who had once teamed up with Chen Hui in a dungeon run, but Xiao had a problem. In real life, she was a woman, yet her in-game avatar was male, which made her movements awkward, so she begged Chen Hui to sell her a rare appearance reset potion. The moment Xiao drank it, a strange phenomenon occurred, and suddenly a beautiful girl appeared in front of them, and to thank Chen Hui, she decided to travel with him for a while. Though the very first night, Gigi couldn't resist and started telling dirty jokes. The next day, Chen Hui got invited by his old friend Sister Mary to her guild hall, where she welcomed him with over-the-top enthusiasm. And through her intel, he learned that since city teleport gates had stopped functioning, players had nowhere to go and had to seek shelter in big guilds for protection. Mary strongly wanted Chen Hui to join her guild because things outside were chaotic, but Chen Hui had once been treated like a disposable tool inside a guild and had painful memories, so she immediately rejected the offer. As Chen Hui walked through the streets filled with hopeless players, she decided that night she would check the outskirts of the novice village. But stepping outside, they encountered dozens of squirrels, and even though the three of them were supposed to be top-tier veterans because they had just crossed into this world and didn't know how to release skills properly, they were embarrassingly beaten down. In the middle of the fight, Xiao suddenly unleashed the ultimate assassin skill without knowing how, and Chen Hui instantly realized the truth, quickly ordering Gigi to use his body and voice to trigger skills. For in this world, as long as you could lock onto the enemy, you could activate skills and magic through your own body and shouting. After several days of training in the wild, Chen Hui and his friends finally mastered the basic combat rules of this world, but one night a mysterious dark figure began tailing them. At that time, Xiao Hui was practicing her sub-profession skills and offered to scout ahead, promising to meet Chen Hui at the South Gate later. In this world, there weren't only 12 main classes but also many sub-professions, each with unique skills. Still, Chen Hui couldn't calm down, remembering what Mary had said about public security, because after being trapped here, some players with nothing better to do had started roaming the wild just for PK fun. Soon, Chen Hui and Gigi arrived at the Loka Healing Institute, where Gigi got trapped by magical chains until Chen Hui rushed to dispel them. But then several dark silhouettes approached. They were bandits who specialized in ambushing players. Using a magic stone, Chen Hui confirmed they only had 4 members, so Gigi clashed with their warrior head-on, but their assassin immediately targeted Chen Hui. Too bad Chen Hui had already predicted it, and with one mental bind, he froze the assassin in place. Gigi understood instantly and used a taunt roar to pull everyone's aggression onto himself, his health dropping fast, and just when the enemies thought they had the upper hand, they failed to notice that their healer had already been hypnotized by Chen Hui, while their hidden mage had been swiftly taken down by Xiao. Realizing their doom, the enemies kneeled before Chen Hui begging for mercy, but before the words could finish, one of them suddenly pulled a dagger and lunged straight at him. Just after dealing with that mess, Sister Mary called again asking for help, explaining that a guild member in the northern village of Boying was being oppressed by local players. Since teleport gates didn't work, her guild planned to march personally with their elites to rescue him, and she asked Chen Hui to help manage the guild affairs while she was gone. But Chen Hui hesitated, knowing Mary's strength wasn't enough for such a long journey, yet he also didn't want to get entangled with guilds again. In his moment of hesitation, Xiao and Gigi gave him their answer, pushing him to go, so finally the three of them set off for Boying. After 3 long days, they reached the top of Lishi Mountain, and since mounts could only be ridden 4 hours a day and the ground was full of monsters, Chen Hui decided they would cross the strait using the underground Palom tunnels. But once inside, they discovered the place crawling with countless little ratata-like creatures, and overwhelmed by numbers, Chen Hui was forced into an older, more dangerous path. When they reached the center of a rickety bridge, it suddenly collapsed, and Chen Hui plunged into the rushing water below. And as he drifted into unconsciousness, visions of his old gaming days flashed before his eyes once again. Because of Chen Hui's deep obsession with this game, he became almost like a textbook example of it, yet no one ever really treated him as a friend, only as a tool to be used whenever convenient, and in that long journey he gradually lost the true meaning of the game until he joined the Libertines Tea Party, where he finally realized that the meaning of gaming was never just about the game itself. At that moment, he awoke to Xiao's desperate shouting, For after he had fallen from the bridge, it was Xiao who dragged him out of the water. And seeing that his body was unharmed, he quickly regrouped with Gigi and the others to press forward. But just as they neared the exit of the tunnel, a giant Rattata blocked their way. And with the exit so close, Chen Hui ordered Xiao and Gigi into battle stance. And under their combined assault, the monster's health began to drop until, with Chen Hui's buff empowering Xiao, she unleashed her fatal blow that finally killed the beast, clearing the way. Emerging from the tunnel, they were stunned by a breathtaking landscape they had never seen before. While elsewhere, a man named Demiquas clung to his old in-game values, leading his guild to act like tyrants indoors, making the city's atmosphere more and more tense. For since no one truly died here, they enslaved NPCs for profit and mercilessly killed rebelling players over and over. Only because a kind soul had hidden Sarara was she spared from Demiquas's oppression, and you would never imagine it. This level 19 healer had once smacked a level 90 boss back to the respawn shrine with a single staff strike. At that moment, Chen Hui and his party arrived outside Boy, and according to intel, the notorious Brigantia Guild had seized control of the city. So to avoid open combat at the gates, Chen Hui chose to regroup inside the safe zone where PK wasn't allowed. For safety, he told Xiao Li to use her tracker skills and scout during their entry. Then he and Gigi strode boldly into the city. But as soon as he stepped into its streets and felt the twisted atmosphere, Chen Hui's unease deepened. Once they reached the meeting point, Chen Hui had Gigi guard the door while he went inside to bring Sarara out. And to his shock, the kind soul who had rescued her was none other than his old Tea Party teammate Miauta. After exchanging information, Miauta, disappointed with Boy's corruption, wanted to return to Akihabara with Chen Hui. But just then Chen Hui received intel from Xiao that Brigantia's guild leader Demiquas was hunting for their whereabouts. Even so, Chen Hui calmly made his escape plan, and with Sarara at his side, he brazenly walked out of the city, only to find Demiquas waiting outside just as expected, where Chen Hui deliberately provoked him, forcing Demiquas to challenge Miauta to a duel. With his martial armor class and near instant cooldowns, Demiquas furiously suppressed Miauta at the start, draining 2/3 of his health every few turns. But Miauta's counterattacks only grew sharper, for as a Dao swordsman, he wielded attacks with special effects that steadily pushed Demiquas onto the back foot. Unable to win fairly, Demiquas called in his whole guild, and Gigi suddenly charged out, unleashing a taunting roar that pulled the mobs onto himself, holding them down. Yet with healers spamming Demiquas with recovery, Miauta was forced back into a corner. Just then Chen Hui had Sarara unleash her pulsing heal, though as a low-level druid she couldn't outpace their opponents. But in that instant, Gigi and Chen Hui connected like mind and soul. Gigi triggering Fortress Watch to absorb every attack for 10 whole seconds, while Chen Hui revealed a sly smile. As Miauta rushed forward, Chen Hui cast a tear lock that froze Demiquas in place, and in a furious combo of stacked skill resets, they hammered him with over 10,000 damage in just 1 second, killing him instantly. The rear-line mages were still stunned when Xiao darted in and cut them down, and as the tide turned, Demiquas's oppressed lackeys dropped their weapons. Yet Demiquas still tried to strike at Chen Hui again, only to be smacked right back to the respawn shrine by Sarara's single level 19 staff strike. At once, Chen Hui and the others summoned their mounts and flew south in full view of the crowd. You'd never expect it, but the delicious-looking food here tasted like soggy crackers soaked in water, edible only after adding plain seasonings. Ever since arriving in this other world, Chen Hui and his friends had eaten nothing but tasteless meals, until that night when the smell of roasting meat filled the air. Having just crossed the Lipot Strait on their mounts, and with Demiquas lacking a fantasy-class ride to chase them, they set camp at dusk, their stomachs growling as they sat before another pile of bland rations, when suddenly, Gigi sniffed something, real grilled meat, and they found Miauta by the river cooking it. Tasting it, they were shocked to discover it had the same flavor as food in the real world, and they realized that to eat tasty meals here, you had to abandon old gaming logic and cook with your own 2 hands. Yet not everyone could. You needed the chef sub-profession and the proper cooking level. Having not eaten anything so delicious since arriving, Gigi stuffed himself to bursting. The next day, on their journey back to Akihabara, Chen Hui and the others stopped by an NPC's farm for rest, settling in before moving on. After settling down at their lodging, the NPC began sharing his life story with Chen Hui, and listening to it, Chen Hui suddenly realized that even NPCs were born, grew old, and eventually died, each carrying their own unique story, and that in their eyes, players must look like monsters, for unlike them, players had tough bodies and could resurrect endlessly. Watching the sibling NPCs playfully bicker reminded Chen Chen Hui of the two newbie players he had once met back in the gaming days, when he usually hated people approaching him for profit, but seeing how those two were entering the game for the first time and enjoying its joy, he had taken them under the mentor system for a while. Now, those two were stuck in a guild called Hamelin, where they were forced every day to hand over their beginner-level XP potions and were ordered to grind monsters for money. And one day, the younger brother, while out hunting, suffered because the leader and other teammates were too high level, drawing excessive aggro and breaking formation. Yet he dared not complain because in this world, strength meant everything. The next day, they prepared to hunt again. And though they spotted Chen Hui, their former mentor, they believed no one would help nobodies like them, so they turned away. But Chen Hui had already noticed their plight. Soon, two shocked girls stared wide-eyed as their old friend Chen Hui casually asked to borrow 5 million gold from them as startup capital to reform the game world's atmosphere. That day, Sister Mary threw a small celebration at the guild hall to welcome Sarara back safely to Akihabara, but her friend Henrietta warned her not to spread the discovery that food could have taste, for in this world, it was an epic-making secret, and revealing it would bring chaos. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Mary sought Chen Hui privately, explaining that though public security had improved while he was in Boye, the sudden rise of large guilds had created severe class divisions, with one side led by DDD, which had swallowed several small guilds, and the other side being the Black Sword Knights with their surging player base. These battle guilds left mid and small guild players without hunting grounds, forcing many to idle away their days. 2 days earlier, several small and mid guilds had met to resist the giants, but each only cared about its own interests, and the meeting ended in failure. Meanwhile, players realized the current level cap was 100, and many sought to keep leveling. And that was when an organization called Hamelin appeared, under the guise of helping beginners, to seize the newbie-only XP potions. Chen Hui suddenly grasped how twisted the city had become, yet felt powerless as just one player, until a voice called to him. It was Miauta, who enlightened him that the essence of guilds was simply friends playing together. Fragile perhaps, but never a reason to deny the system itself, for within every guild there were those silently devoting themselves. His words struck Chen Hui, reminding him that behind him also stood two companions quietly waiting for his decision. Awakened, Chen Hui's first act was to contact through voice comms the newbies oppressed by Hamelin, vowing to save them after confirming the guild's crimes. The next morning, beneath the great tree, Chen Hui looked at loyal Jiji and Xiang and understood that this was the true meaning of forming a guild.